Hey, what's up YouTube? I'm working on the Subaru Crosstrek. I'm actually doing the hoses, the upper radiator hose, lower hose, which you can see down here, and the belt, the serpentine belt. Now before I go any further, I just want to say thanks to all my subscribers. Thanks for you guys' support. That's what's keeping me keep doing these videos. Hopefully you guys like all my videos. If you're not already a subscriber, please go ahead and subscribe, hit that notification bell. That way whenever I make a new video, you guys could actually get notified and, you know, enjoy all the videos I've been making. So again, just want to say thank you and thanks for all your support. So before I make an attempt to take the hoses off, I just want to remove this air duct. It's actually held in by two clips. They were missing on this truck, so just pop it up, get that out of the way. Here we have access to the upper hose, two clamps, one here, one there. So at the bottom of the vehicle, I just got to remove some bolts. It's like 4 bolts. We have 2 in the front, right below the front bumper, that holds the skid plate or dust shield. So we got 1 bolt right here, that's a 12mm. They're all 12 actually. There's one on the other side. This one is actually missing, but it goes right here. So 2 in the front, and we have 2 in the rear. That's 1, that's 2. Now once we remove those bolts, then there's gonna be a few clips. So right by each wheel, I'm on the driver's side right now. Look to the left of that. It's gonna be a clip that holds the shield, and then if you follow the axle, follow the shocks, and you go up, on the side right here there's another shield, another clip. It sits right there. I took that one out already. And the same thing on the passenger side. When you get to the passenger side, that's the passenger wheel. It's going to be the same setup up in this side. And I have the vehicle on ramps. Which makes it much easier actually to work on it. So I got the bolts out, and the front one is actually longer. So the 2 front ones are going to be longer, and they're shoulder bolts. I believe that's what they're called. So that's the front one, and the rear ones are shorter. And once I take my bolts out, I just generally place them in order of how I took them out, and then maybe just take a picture of it so I know to put them back the same in the same spot. So on the passenger side, here's the other clip. It's sitting right here, and all you need is a flat blade screwdriver. Stick it in, pop that out, and then the other one, I'll take that out after. The other one is, if I get a good shot, is right up here, which is in the same spot as the driver's side, but right behind the wheel. Pop your blade in, pop it out, and then you could just pull this out. There are gonna be 6 of these clips in total. This truck only had 5, but the last one I discovered was by the wheel, and you look in, there's one right here. I got that one, but there was another one in the back here. It's like directly opposite to the front one. There's one in the back, so don't forget to remove that one. And then of course the one up top that I had showed earlier. Now this truck is pretty much the same setup as the Subaru Forester, so before I start taking off hose clamps, the lower one especially, I'm going to go over to this is the radiator all along here. I'm going to go across to the passenger side, and over by the passenger side, if you look on the end of the radiator, you see this little Phillips head screw. It's actually the drain plug, so I'm just gonna put my catch pan under that. I'll use a Phillips head screwdriver, back that out, and let the coolant flow. Okay, so I got my coolant catch pan sit directly below that drain plug. The drain plug is right there. Is my Phillips head. Back that out. It's gonna start flowing out slowly. And before you do all this, make sure the engine is cold. The car's been sitting for a few hours. Engine is nice and cool. Well, cold, not cool, but just make sure it's cold, so you don't get burned by hot coolant. So I'll just finish taking that out, and then I'll show the next step. So once I got it trickling out like that, then I'll come up top and I'll open the radiator cap. So just crack it loose. Once you take it off, it starts giving you a nice steady stream. So once that's all drained, I go back under and put the petcock back on. And when you take this off, you got to make sure there's a washer on it, that you don't lose that washer. Sometimes it stays up in there, sometimes it comes off with the plug, but just make sure that washer is there. So now I want to remove the lower hose. So I just use my pliers. And I already have this one off, but pretty much you grab it like so, you squeeze, and if it's set this way, you just want to grab it, squeeze, pull it back. Same for the front one. This one's all rusted, so I gotta change this one, but same concept. You grab with the pliers, squeeze, move it back, let it go, and I generally twist the hose by hand. It might be a little hard, but you could twist it by hand. or use a channel lock to twist it. That's not moving, so I'm going to use the bigger plier to do that. Okay, so as you can see, so I got me a bigger plier, put it on there where the clamp was, just gently squeeze, not too tight, and rotate it. That way you break up all the debris, whatever is holding it, preventing it from coming off. And you do the same to the front. Get it on, twist it. Got that twisted, that's good. Now before I take the hose off, I'm going to get my drain pan, put it over, then take the hose off. And this is the reason I put the pan under it, because once you twist and pull and it comes off, you're gonna have coolant coming out. Just want to tilt the hose a little, drain that out. Okay, that's out. Now I could twist this by hand. We already loosened it up with the plier, so twist by hand and pull. Get that off. I'm not changing the thermostat, but if I was, then this bolt right here and that one comes off. Take this housing out, and the thermostat is sitting up in there. But I'll let that drain a little bit. I'll go take the upper hose off. Okay, so same concept, removing the upper hose. Got this clamp, got our plier. You want to get on the clamp like so. Squeeze that, twist it, move it away. Same on this one. Get on it, squeeze, twist, move it away. Try to twist this by hand. Okay, I was able to get that one. Twist this end by hand. Nope. So back to the pliers. It's actually called a slip joint plier, but everybody call it channel locks. I believe Channel Lock invented it or something like that. So just want to get a grip on it, squeeze just a little bit, rotate, get that hose moving. Okay, slide it off while rotating it. Slide, rotate. Upper off. That's off. Now we got our hose. So we got lower, we got upper. Now we got to get our new hoses and match them up. Okay, so old, new. So that's the old lower, new upper. Just want to make sure they line up, matches up. Put the new one, lay it on top of the old one. As you can see, Perfect. Same. The new one looks a little bigger, but it's actually not. Put the lower one, I mean. So you put the new lower on top of the old one. Same thing. Exact size. Now the next step is to transfer our clamps. We want to take the clamps off, put it on the new ones in the same spot. Same thing with the upper. Take the clamp off, put on the new hose. The other one, put on the new hose, and we put our hoses back on the car. So now I got the hoses on. I put the rusted clamp on the top hose, the upper hose. That way, when I get the new clamp, I could change this one without draining all the antifreeze. And the lower hose, that's on. Clamps are on. So before I add the coolant, I'm going to go ahead and change the belt while the engine is cold. So I'll just put the cap back on. Not going to tighten it, just put it on. And got to remove this cover, which is a 10 millimeter. Take that off. And just remember, you always want to disconnect your battery. I didn't do mine, but I like to disconnect it just in case the car has remote start. This one don't. So once I got this bolt out, the other side, there's it's just a rubber grommet with a little tab that slides in it. So it's just to hold the cover and pick straight up. Get that out of the way. And here we have our belt. You want to take pictures of your belt. Make sure you're putting the new one back on in the correct orientation. So changing the belt, I swung the upper hose. I disconnected it, one end, just swung it out of the way, put it on that side. And the belt is pretty simple. It's a 14 millimeter. 14, it's upside down, but 14. Put it on this tensioner. This is actually a spring-loaded tensioner. So once you put 14 millimeter ratchet, the socket, you loose it up a little bit clockwise, and then you're able to take the belt off. Release the tension. Take the belt off. And this belt actually had some cracks in it. So now we take our old belt, match it up with our new belt, make sure that it fits. Now what I like to do before I put the new belt on, I like to spin all the pulleys, so the alternator, all the pulleys, tensioner, just to make sure there are no noise. This is the only one you're not going to be able to spin by hand, which is the crank pulley, but everything else you'll be able to spin, listen for any kind of noise, shake it, see if there's any kind of play. Minimum play, nothing to worry about. Same on the water pump, minimum play. So now I'll route the belt. Like I said, take pictures, make sure you're routing the belt correctly, and put the belt on. The no belt's always a few millimeters short, so it's going to be tight. Make sure it's in all the grooves. Release the tension. And that's it. Belt's on. Okay, so here we have belt and the hose back on. And just a quick tip to get your hose and hose clamp to seat properly and easier to install, even to take off, both installation and removal. Just add a little antifreeze. Just pour a little antifreeze over the clamp and on the hose, and it'll make it much easier to, once you grip it, to pull it, slide it off. It'll make it easier to remove, and also much easier to install it. So next step is just to put my cover back on. This little tab right there, right here, sits in that hole. Push down, snaps in. Put my 10mm bolt back in, and after that is just to remove the cap, add my coolant, let it run, bleed the system, and we're good to go. So I'm going to add the coolant and bleed the system, and I'm using a spill-free funnel. It comes with attachments. This is a kit by Lyle. It has about 15 attachments. You just find the one that best matches up with your radiator cap, and you screw it on, tighten that down, put your funnel in it, and the part number on that is actually, here we go, got the part number on that. And all I'm going to do at this point is just add the coolant to that funnel. And I'm just going to fill it until I see it back up in the funnel. I'll let that drain. Now once I fill the radiator, then I'm going to start the vehicle, let it run, maybe about 5 minutes, let the thermostat open up, and whatever coolant is left in the funnel is actually going to suck it in, and you're going to see the coolant level gets lower. And as the engine's running, just give it a couple of revs, maybe rev it up to like 2000, 2500 RPM. Have your heater on so the coolant circulate through the heater core, and that way all the air that's trapped in it is actually going to come out as bubbles in the funnel. So this funnel comes with a plug, and the way it works, the plug goes inside the funnel. There's a hole in there, you can see at the bottom here. I plug it. Now I'm going to start the vehicle, let it run, pop that plug out, and allow the coolant, the engine, to pull whatever coolant it needs, let it circulate, and then it's going to start burping all the air bubbles out of it. So another thing I forgot to mention, before you start all this, make sure you have the front of the vehicle elevated. So you could see I have it on ramps. So I have that elevated. The higher the front, the better it'll bleed. Air tends to rise. So the higher you have the front elevated, then all the air bubbles will focus on coming up to its highest point, which is inside the funnel. Okay, so I got it running. So now I'm going to take the plug out, and you should see air bubbles coming out. I got the plug out. Air bubbles. So now I'll just rev it up to about 2500. watching the level of the coolant. Just remember, once the thermostat opens, how you could generally tell when the thermostat opens, the fans are going to kick on. And once you hear the fan comes on, that's when the thermostat is generally open. And this coolant is actually, the level is going to get lower. So you just want to monitor it and make sure it does not get too low to where there's no more coolant in the funnel. You always want to have coolant in the funnel. So you could add, I normally have it about halfway. So I'm actually going to add some more and just let it keep doing its thing. Occasionally I'll come in, I'll rev it up a little bit just to get the coolant flowing, the pump pumping. And once I hear the fan comes on and the coolant level drops, then I'll determine if it needs more coolant, or if I see any more air bubbles, then I'll let it run some more. But this is a good investment. The spill-proof funnel I love, and it's, like I said, it's about maybe 15 pieces, and it works on multiple vehicles. So about 5 minutes later, barely getting any bubbles out. Maybe every few seconds you may see one tiny bubble. So I'm just going to hold the upper radiator hose, squeeze it, release, just squeeze it slowly, release it, just to see if any, just to try and get whatever additional bubbles that's in the system to escape. Do the same thing with the lower hose. Now, while it's doing that, I'll go ahead and I'll check for any kind of leaks. Well, I'll check twice actually. I'll check to make sure there are no leaks from the hoses, from the clamps. Then put the dust shield back on, or the skid guard. And after I put that back on, then put the radiator cap back on. And start the engine again, and just double check everything. Now, since there's no more bubbles coming out, it's about maybe 5-6 minutes now since the engine's been, well, actually about 7 to 10 minutes since the engine's been running. It's pretty safe to say there are no more air in the system. So what I'm going to do now is put this plug back in the funnel, which all you do, you just stick it right in and it plugs the funnel. I'm going to shut the car off, let it cool down, and then I'll put everything back together and just check the temperature and make sure it's not overheating and everything's working fine. Okay, so engine's off. I got a rag just to try to catch any spill. The plug is in. Take my funnel out. You can see the plug is preventing it from spilling. Still got fluid in there. Now what you could do with this excess fluid is put it in the tank. So if the tank is low, you could just add it in the overflow tank. But for now, I'm gonna put it aside, check the tank first, and get this cover on. And that's what the adapters look like. So this goes in the rubber, and this sits on top, and it's pretty much the equivalent of the radiator cap. So I'll put the cap on. Remove my rag. Now I'll go ahead and I'll start the engine again. The fans didn't come on, but I've noticed on some cars the fan comes on, and on others it don't. But there were no more bubbles coming out, air bubbles coming out after about maybe 10 minutes. So I got the cap back on. I got the area cleaned up, around the hoses cleaned up. I'm going to restart it, let it run, let the system build pressure. Still got my heat on. Once it builds pressure, the thermostat will open, the fan comes on, cools the engine. I'll let it do that maybe twice, and then let it cool down again. Open up the radiator, check, make sure I have coolant in the radiator, make sure my reservoir is filled to the mark that's on the side of it, which is the full mark, and take it for a drive. So I got the cap on, it's running. Check for leaks. No leaks. Squeeze the hose, it's building up pressure. That's good. No leaks on the upper hose. Let me check the lower. No leaks on the lower. So at this point, it's just put the skid plate back on. And once that's back on, take it for a spin. Come back, open up your coolant. Once it's cooled down, like fully cooled to where the upper hose is cold to the touch, you want to check your coolant level, check your reservoir tank. Right now I got it at the mark it needs to be, at that top mark right there. So once that's checked, everything is checked off, it's all set. And I believe on these Subarus, maybe on some other cars also, but on these Subarus, if you don't have a funnel like that, you could fill the radiator, squeeze the hose a few times, fill the radiator, try to get as much air bubbles as you can out of it. Then you put the cover on, put coolant in the overflow tank, and you start the engine, let it runs, and it'll actually bleed itself. But I think it takes longer doing it that way, but it'll actually bleed itself. The air comes up and goes in the tank. There's more information on that online, so that could be checked, and that is it. Now we wouldn't want to waste the antifreeze we had in the funnel, so we're just going to take the funnel, put it on the bottle. Then we're just gonna pull out the plug and let that coolant drain back in the bottle. Once that's drained, then we're just gonna put our plug back in, and that's that. Now once everything's all packed away, all your attachment goes inside the funnel. You want to put your lid back on. There you go. And it has a little tab, little hook. So you could put it on a hook actually. And I just hook this up and everything's all set. Now please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.